All right, so we are here with Trevor Conkle. Yeah, I'm saying your last name right, correctly. I've known you for a long time, and I'm saying it because otherwise I've been calling you that wrong for a while. So, what a way to start out
Hey,
this
you
interview.
got it, man. It finally stuck.
Yeah, man. Um, Currently piano player for Mark Trammell Quartet.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
and you're the reason why there's five people instead of four people, so we love that. Um,
I get told that about every night. Why is there five people in the picture? I'm like, well, it's because I'm here.
it's because us piano players worked hard our whole lives and we want to be in the picture.
That's right. That's
That's right.
right.
So man, tell me about when you, and I don't think some of this I know, to be honest with you, we've never talked about it. Tell me like about growing up when you started and kind of how you got to where you're at right now.
Yeah. So I was about 3 years old, and my mom and dad noticed that I was kind of having the ear ability a little bit. I would come home and I was playing just on a little toy. I mean, like a little, I think a little Tykes yellow toy piano. It wasn't even a real piano, it was just a toy.
Yeah.
And it had five little keys, from like C, D, E, F, G. And literally, they heard me playing the melody to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And then they were kind of like, well, that's kind of, not normal. So they kind of took that and they were like, okay, maybe there's something there. And then, of course, as I got older, I guess my ear continued to develop. And when I was about five, they're like, okay, maybe we really do need to take this seriously. And they actually went and got a real piano for me for Christmas that year. And it's this little stand up uh, piano, and we'll spin it, and I've still got it here at the house. And I got that, like I said, when I was five for Christmas, and then I met the lady who ended up being my piano teacher for a few years through the guy who sells the piano. So I ended up being his daughter, and so I met Miss Smith there and developed a good relationship with her. And also, I was one of those crazy piano students that, I guess because my ear was advanced, she was like, stick to the music. You got to do this. I was hearing everything else, like, why do we have to do one note at a time? This is so simple and crazy.
Yeah.
I was hearing it, far more, I guess, beyond the average student. So I took from her for about, I guess it was about 5 or 6 years. And then we kind of got to a point. She's like, "Well, I don't know what else to teach you." We went through, the Faber books and everything, and kind of got the basic theory stuff out of the way.
What was your?
So
It's just funny to always hear a piano lesson. So, what is the first song? Like, I had "Stepping Up, Stepping Down" and a skip. Like, what is it? Like? Do you maybe you don't remember that, but usually
I,
sometimes
I
people
think
remember
we
that.
might have had that. I
Yeah.
remember like London Bridge, that kind of stuff. I mean, it was just bare minimum, like London Bridge, and then what was the other one?
Just right
Maybe it
hand
was. It was.
melodies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was something about. I remember one was like a cuckoo clock. It was just like some kind of simple melody, just
yeah.
maybe playing triad, just
Okay.
barely.
So
But
you
so
were taking
yeah,
lessons of that, but you kind of had like an ear, um, and then I interrupted you with that. So go ahead.
yeah. No, you're fine. No. So, so I said, okay, well let's dive in on hymns because she knew I was starting to do stuff at church, and that was really opening my ears up. Every Sunday I go to church, and I'd hear what the piano player would play for congregational and then also specials. And I go home and I try to emulate everything that she did. Of course, it was terrible, but I would just go home and I try to reproduce that, and I was like, I want to do that so bad. And we had a great congregational style piano player, so I got that exposure from her, and then I got exposure from another lady who played for our church choir. She had a different style, more rhythmic pattern, and so I've been blessed to be around different styles from a young age. So that really helped develop me as a piano player. I really feel like.
So the rhythmic maybe where you kind of were around chords and rhythm for the first time, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I
Okay.
and I guess I didn't know what they were till about age 8 or 9, and I started noticing the patterns, and I started noticing, my ear was gravitating. Okay, this is a 1 4 5, kind of a simple thing. But I didn't even know that the national number system was a thing. I just kind of developed this, well, this is repetitive in every song. Or we would do like, Through the Fire or some song. I'd be like, okay, well, that same pattern's in this song too. So you learn how a lot of songs, they
When
have very similar.
when I first figured out what the 4 chord was, I was a guitar player first, so like G was the key I learned, so I called that the C chord in the key of, like, oh, that's how it hit me when the 4 came. I was like, oh, so in A flat, the D flat is the C of that one. Like, because that's the way I thought. I thought everything in G for a while, and then I was like, oh, so
Yes.
the 4 is the C in every key. And the
Yes.
first time I said that, they're like, well, it's not always C, only in G. I'm like, yeah, but never mind. So it's funny to hear how that, different people got
And see,
that and
us
stuff.
piano players, we're flat guys. We despise sharps all the way, all day long.
Yeah, and
So
and and so that is interesting. Like, I translated my guitar to piano, so like, I still have no, I love like the key of A and E, and like most piano players
yeah,
are like, whoa there, stop.
yeah.
We're not gonna play no solo in the key of E, So yeah, uh, yeah. So
I
anyway,
actually have gotten better at it. Of course you have to, but I
yeah.
actually I love the key of B and I love the key of E. Once you appreciate as you develop your voicings and you hear the different tonal qualities, and it's like, okay, I think I can like that. The more you play it, of course, you fall in love with it.
So I
So
used to hate
I
I used to hate E flat, and most
oh
players love
really?
E flat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Now I
that's
don't.
like the next step up from B flat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't like it. Well, I was just, I just ran into another student. It's just like that. Not a student, but do you know the Matthews family? They used to be part of the Rochester's
Yeah, oh
family.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So Macy from there, I'm producing their stuff right now, and she's sending me all this stuff. And like, she's obviously picked the keys and plays the piano, and it's all like in B and F sharp and all these things like that. And I'm like, this is the way I was. I was like playing in these guitar keys. She was in a bluegrass setting, so that she's probably
Oh
having to
yeah.
play in that. So yeah, that's funny. Yeah, and you do find out like there's different tricks and different keys, so it's kind of cool how they talk to
Mhm.
each other. I think over time, but you have to get used to
Yeah.
all of them because the session players really don't care what key it's in when we have to play them.
No.
They don't.
No.
So
I tell you, my hats off to session players because it's just that is a true talent. And I
yeah,
tried it, and it's just like, okay, that's not my strength. I think I'll
it's
just
a different
continue the
muscle.
live concert before. Oh, literally, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And the
anyway, man,
creativity.
so tell me like how that brought you to get to your first job, and I think I know your first job, but I'm not sure. So go ahead and,
Okay. Yeah.
finish that up.
So what's funny is I guess I was about 10 or 11, and I actually most people don't know this. Once I got to that point where I was like at a crossroads, like, okay, I love sports, love basketball, and I had the long arms and I was the man on defense, and I love basketball in junior high, and I was like, okay, I really would like to decide what I'm going to pursue, because I was at that age. So I ended up not making the middle school basketball team the next year. And so I was like, okay, that's confirmation. I'm going to just pursue music. And so I actually went on YouTube, which I've listened to YouTube a lot, and learn a lot from so many different styles and people all over the world. You can learn black gospel and jazz chords. I mean, all day long, I could sit there and just learn something new. But I found this guy in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. His name was Greg Howlett. And he
Yeah.
was kind of an inspirational style classical piano player.
He had
But
some
he came
gospel in there
along.
though.
Yeah, oh
Church
yeah,
player for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, oh yeah. I think he went to an independent Baptist church over there north of Atlanta. So he definitely was not just a classically trained pianist. He
Yeah.
he had some good gospel stylings as well. I think he did one I remember is like "I'm Bound for the Promised Land." He did a really cool riff. Andy Leftwich, don't you?
Yeah.
Fiddle player.
Yeah, we're
He did.
doing
I
the
think he had him
Matthews
on
thing
his
together right now.
videos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was on one of his records. I remember this is like 12, 14, 15 years ago. It was a long time. But so anyway, I found about him on YouTube, and I listened to some of his stuff, and he'd come out with a couple of solo CDs. but I really liked what he was putting out in regards to instructional courses.
Yeah.
And you know, just like he had, I guess, built up a following over just years on YouTube, and he developed a website, and just he had a great following. And I think he
Yeah.
had some health issues, and he's not doing it anymore. But I learned a lot through his stuff, and I've never met him in person. But if someday, if I ever get to, I want to give him just a big hug and thank you, because he really brought that merge and transition that I needed to, from an amateur pianist to a semi-professional mindset, you know, because I didn't have that knowledge that I needed, and he gave it to me. And the good thing is, with it being a self-instructional, you know, I could watch the videos over and over and over. And I could go back, and that really is something that I recommend to people if they can find something like yours. You know, not getting that 30-minute piano lesson and then you forget what he said. You know, that's a big advantage that I learned. And I guess with him, I learned his stuff over like 2.5, 3 years, and I got up, I guess, to about age 14, and I started playing a little bit for a local group out of Scottsboro, Alabama, called New Ground, which you've been with them when you were with the Echoes.
I did not know this.
Yeah, which I was never hired full time, but you know, I would fill in, and they'd give me some great exposure.
So
and be on
before
stage.
Scott Brand was kind of with them, you were with them then, maybe, right?
Actually, Scott was there already. He
Okay.
he was doing more vocal stuff, you know, and I was only, I filled in there maybe, I think maybe 7 or 8 times over a 6 month period, you know.
But they
But
gave you a
I've been
shot.
fans of. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Dale and Robbie were such encouragement, and they took me actually up to Dollywood for that fall festival that they did, Southern Gospel Fall Fest, I think it was, in October one time. So that was a big moment in my
So you're
gospel
from this
music career.
area then, where you're at right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
wow,
from
I
North
didn't know that. You
Alabama
didn't have to move
originally.
nothing.
No. It was a God thing for sure. It was
Okay.
just moments in those things. It's like, you know, thank you, Lord, for that connection and opportunity. And we're still great friends. And I know Dale and Robbie, I think they've been singing 30 years now. I mean, which is crazy. I think I remember they just celebrated their 20th when I was with them just a little bit. So their ministry is still going strong.
Good
And Dale,
people.
Robbie and David Owens are just great people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of my local exposure into getting some experience on stage and seeing, you know, would I like this? Is this something that I would be interested in? And by the way, I'm in public school at this time. You know, I got checked out to go to Dollywood for that. So really, it turned into that summer. We kind of decided, you know, okay, the way things were going, I think I want to do homeschool. Maybe, you know, just wasn't the current route. I needed to go in public school, and I felt like God was opening a new door some way, somehow, you know, and not knowing where, really, honestly. It was just kind of one of those faith moments that, okay, I just feel like that's the thing I need to do. So that was in, like, you know, April, May. And then later that fall, um, I started homeschool through Liberty Online Academy, which is a program through Liberty University. They have an online homeschool as well. So I did that, and went, I guess, through the first year of that, and really started, you know, to get to know people in the industry, going to hear other concerts, hear artists I'd never heard of, you know, because the thing is, our industry is based on relationships and knowing
Yeah.
people. And,
Yeah.
you know, I had great people that would encourage me, and I'd tag along, go with them to hear Collinsworth, or I'd go hear Greater Vision, go hear, you know, people like the Mark Trammell Quartet. You know, I actually went to their homecoming when as just a fan. I've still got the picture of me and Mark when I was 13 years old. You know, that kind
That's
of thing.
right.
So
I probably got one
you
of me
know,
and Mark with 13, and there's my dad has got one with. I'm just kidding. He doesn't. Huge Mark Trammell fan. We love you, Mark. Okay, so but I did grow up listening to him for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Who didn't? I mean, he was almost at every group of gospel music. You know,
He doesn't really age. I go back and watch the old
No.
cathedrals things, and it's like it's kind of the same look. I mean, I feel like I'm gonna get older, and he's just gonna stay looking like he looks. I don't know how he does that.
I guess it's the Lord's favor.
Yeah, that's right. Still hitting B flats as a baritone.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm telling you, he's incredible.
Yeah,
Most consistent baritone singer in gospel music, I say. You know.
yeah. Baritone with a
Uh,
tenor range. It doesn't. I don't know.
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
You know, his brother was an incredible tenor singer, so that whole family was just gifted.
yeah.
Um,
Crazy.
so basically at that point, the following fall, I had an opportunity to go try out for the Hoppers, and the way that happened was Kim came to our little country church, and she sang a solo date to start our summer revival, and she heard me play for the congregation and had me back her up on one song. And afterwards, she was like, would you be interested in trying out for us? And I'm thinking, what? I'm just this 16-year-old kid from Arab, Alabama, never really been anywhere, and you want me to come try out? And so anyway, I got their phone number and contacted them, and a couple months later, I went and tried out in front of 2,000 people at Soldier and Sailors Memorial Auditorium in Chattanooga. That was kind of a scary moment,
It wasn't. It
Uh,
wasn't the 200-person church. You jumped to the big guns.
no, no, yeah. They wanted to see if I could at least make it through because there's no telling what I played that night. I was so nervous.
They didn't give you
But
no charts,
literally,
no nothing, did they? They sent you a
no,
project and said,
no.
"Have at it." You don't know what we're gonna throw at you.
Yes, sir.
Oh
Yes,
man.
sir. And literally, that was on a Saturday. And then the next morning, Claude calls my dad and says, hey, we want to take this boy with us on the road. And literally, he's like, yeah, you can do it. Let him try out. And we just thought, it'd be a date somewhere in Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, somewhere close. Well, he said, well, we're going to leave next Monday for Canada. And literally, mom and dad's thinking, well, how are we going to get this boy ready for Canada? So we found out through our local legislative office that, hey, we'll get him an expedited passport. And can you believe it? 48 hours later, I was on the Hoppers bus headed to Canada.
16.
Yeah,
16.
16, scared to death, but yet excited, like, man, this is awesome.
You get on the bus for the first time, you just look around like, this is what I'm doing the rest of my life. The first time.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
like I've arrived at heaven. What else can it get better? It
Oh
was just
yeah.
an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was with them for 2 weeks, thinking I was on this, practice uh, tryout stage still, and we get home from a 2-week Canada tour, and let's just say 3 years later, I was still trying out. I never went home.
Were you with them 3 years?
Yeah, yeah, just just
Okay.
just shy of 3 years. Yeah, it's like a month and a half, I think it was.
I don't think I knew it was that long.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it
Okay.
was fall of 14 to like almost fall of 17.
Okay.
So a
And
month and a
then
half before convention of 17.
so I think somehow I was off the road by that point in time, or maybe I was with the Echoes, something like that. And I know I had seen you with the Hoppers or something, and I, I felt, and maybe you can correct me on this. I was like, some reason your playing style or something that when I did hear you, I was like, that guy is actually a quartet dude. That's what I felt. And not that you
Really?
weren't playing with the Hoppers fine, because I mean, at the end, you're playing whatever the session players. But I just
Yeah.
felt, I don't know. I felt like that's where, like I felt like you would fit in with the quartet. Not that you couldn't do what you were doing, but you know what I mean? Like I just
Yeah.
felt
Oh,
like
yeah.
I'm like, that's a quartet guy. Did
I've
you
always had
have any in
people
that?
say that. Yeah. I mean, my thing was, I've always told myself I'm going to enjoy myself on stage. I'm living my dream. I've answered the call to ministry, and so I was living it up at 16. When I first went on the road with them. So I always smiled on stage. I was just having a good time, and we get into shout time and all those good songs that had some great rhythm patterns, and I'd play stuff that Gary Prim and so those great Nashville players were playing. But I'm a people person, so I'd look out in the crowd and make connections, and
Yeah.
I got influence from Roger Bennett and Anthony Berger, just studying them growing up. So I always, having that convention background, have loved quartet music, so it wasn't a surprise at all to me, for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, let's talk a little bit about your current job with Mark, and then talk about
Yeah,
because you went straight from there to Mark, right? I'm
I
correct in
did.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, sir.
I know a lot of people want to hear two things. They want to hear what it's like when you have to learn a new program, or when you first went with there. Like, what is your practicing? Everybody is always asking me, so I know what this is like as they're learning. Like, what is it like to practice? I always tell them, like, hey, when you're on the road, you got 15, 20 songs that you want to be able to do in the cold in an outdoor venue. So you want it like muscle memory or whatever. So like the practicing there. So like obviously with the hoppers you got thrown in there. You didn't get like a 2 week here, go learn this, and
Yeah,
here's some
yeah. Here,
charts.
listen to this.
Yeah, so after you guys go to the studio and there's new songs and stuff like that, they want to know like what is your practice, and then also they want to know also your approach to things that you just love on the piano. Like, what are your influences? Like, what do you love practicing? Practicing your specific songs, and then like what do you work on when you're at home if you get a chance to, which is that is a thing when you're playing all the time and it's confusing. Then you're home, and so anyway, if you could answer some things about practicing, that would be good.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So for me, what we do is, we go to the studio, and then we will have, of course, the rhythm section cut first. So we get that part of the track down, and generally I will take that
do you
from the
take the
engineer, and
charts?
yeah, I'll take charts, and I'll
Hmm.
take the tracks from the engineer, and he'll allow me to begin listening to that, because for it to become muscle memory, just like you, I have to just listen to the point where I almost don't want to listen to it anymore.
Yeah, we don't
But
like it by
that
the time we get up there anymore. We've
no, yeah,
we've loved it, now we hate it. Hope you enjoy
yeah.
it.
Yeah, then we get to minister,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so me, like we're doing a new project right now, and we actually did the tracking last December. So I've been listening intently for the past 6 months, and I guess for me, because when you play piano so much, you play it, like as I said earlier, the same patterns. You'll play similar licks and chords, but I just tend to listen for different things this time, that maybe the session pianist played or something, or something different in the bass line, because I'm always, working on developing different voicings. And okay, well, then I'm one of those type of people that I listen to it, and then I have to ask that question: why did they do
Yeah,
that?
me
Not
too.
that it just sounds good, but why did they do that?
Got to make sense out
Which,
of it.
yeah, for me, it just helps put that click there, and it makes sense. So honestly, I've been listening really intently. So there's no surprise for my ear. It's like, okay, I know what to expect. I know what is coming, and then I can go apply that to the piano. So I guess I really started practicing about 2 months ago on, okay, here's where I need to play this specific lick, and just kind of doing the honing and the little
Do
detailing
you
stuff.
how close to the obviously the chords you're trying to it's there, so you got to play those
Yeah.
chords, and there's different voicings, but like how close to the intros and licks and things I see some people are 100% and some people's 50-50, and then some, like what's your theory on that, on staying close to the
My
project, I
thing
guess?
is, yeah, honestly, I like to stay close to the project,
Hmm.
just because it keeps the consistency there, the detail, because maybe that's a new country lick I've never played before. So it pushes me to do something different, and I think that's good too. So
Then you
I
start
stay
using it
true
in your
to
own playing
everything.
because you've learned it.
Yes,
That's what I
yes.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And and then people say, "Did you come up with that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'll give credit to
No,
Trey.
the
You
whole
know, to
crowd assumes that everything played was you. that
Yeah.
you're
Oh
the
yeah.
originator. Oh yeah, absolutely. If people could sit in a session and realize what's going on in there,
Oh my
it will blow.
gosh.
Yeah, like it's um
That's the magic, you know.
oh yeah, it really is incredible. There's performers, and then there's these session players that I don't know if they don't want to travel, or it's just more lucrative for them to do that or what, but it's a different energy in there,
Yes,
for
sir.
sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
so
guess in regards to that practice, generally we also start, we do one song and then we'll do two songs from the new project and slowly work our way into incorporating it into our program. So that also allows me to know what direction that the leader wants to take the song approaches on stage at first. So that tells me what to focus on, in
right.
regards to staging. And honestly, by the time we get to Quartet Convention, I'll have most of them done because we'll know what we're going to be doing in regards to new songs in the programming. And I'm telling you, I'm really excited about this new quartet album that we're doing. Like I said, for me, I hope that the listener doesn't just say, oh, that's just a quartet piano player, because honestly, we try to play differently to a degree, because we can all do the convention style, windshield wiper style, but being able to play convention style and also play like a studio musician at the same time and incorporate that into quartet music, that's not
It's a
an easy
lot.
job. Yeah,
Oh,
I
and
mean,
let
and
me,
it,
for the listeners, he won't say this about himself, but you've probably, up until recently, you've had to play a lot of Goss's stuff, Larry Goss, right? A lot of his
oh
chord
yeah,
changes and stuff.
yeah.
So, for those of you that don't know who that is not an easy task. I've had to chart some of his and play him, and just playing the chords, forget about the licks. It's
Mhm.
it's not memorization on his stuff is a serious issue. Like I'm like, can I just have a chart up there with me? I'll never remember all these changes. Yeah, so you've had to play a lot of his arrangements because I know Mark has used him
Yeah.
over the years, and I know you've carried that theme on with some of your other producers and stuff like that. So like, it is not four chord songs that and then you're having to learn those chords, memorize them, and then decide, well, what licks do I get to play on the second verse or whatever, and still hit all these chord
Yep.
changes? So
Yeah.
it's
And of
not an
course,
easy task that you have there.
well, thankfully, I started out when I was with the Hoppers doing a lot of Larry arrangements. So 9 years later, here I am on the road, full time professional piano playing. That it's just kind of become second nature, that you kind of can anticipate what's to come, but you never fully do anticipate, because now you've got his understudies like Trey Ivy and Cody
Right.
McVeigh that we work with, and Bradley Knight. That we just, you never know what spin they're going to put. Uh, Especially because you just anticipate you're going to have about 4 or 5 modulations,
Oh,
and so yeah,
and to
that's the
get to
key
those
to it.
modulations is going to be different. All the chord changes in between. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Ballads are
but
no joke.
that's what I'm telling you. Yeah, the king is coming. I played it so much I could do it in my sleep, but I truly play it every night like it's the first time, because that song is so special and the message is so special. I think there's there's three, maybe four key changes in that. And but to the average listener, they don't know. There's just so much that goes behind that. Uh, Type of arrangements, and they're my favorite, because it really brought my ear to a different level when I started studying Larry, and especially just orchestra in general. When being raised in the South, I loved classical music and Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra and all that kind of stuff. So I was into that mold already ear-wise, but when it got to, okay, I can do Southern gospel and still play a big ballad, that was really awesome to me to be able to do. So I have learned to appreciate a lot of musical stylings over the 9 years. But Larry has been such an influence on me, and I've never, of course, got to meet him, but Gerald Wolfe has been such an inspiration to me, having a lot of similar stylings, and he studied Larry for all those years too, and I'm
Gerald's a
thankful to get
great
to learn from
player.
great people. Oh my gosh, Gerald is
Fantastic.
the 100% underrated piano players.
Yeah.
His accompaniment, people just don't understand. I don't think just how good he is. He's not flashy, but he plays it so technically and so beautifully. It just goes over the people's heads. You know, he's there to push everyone else and push the message in the front. You know, he doesn't want any credit or anything, but I certainly tell people that he's the best in my opinion. You know.
Yeah, he is really and we're not just saying this to get Gerald's praises, but truthfully, like Gerald, I was reminded when he kind of went back to playing more, and my one of my childhood friends is now singing with him, John Epley. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so like our parents in evangelism and stuff were together as kids, and like we ran
Oh
into
my
each other.
gosh.
Yeah, yeah. So like, I this is not going to be about John Epley, but there was one night I was with a group called Master's Voice, and like I get this call. I was somewhere in Indiana with his in-laws or something like that, and I think he was at a church, and man, he was wanting to do it bad. Never had done it before. I mean, he hadn't been with any group. And I thought about that night several times. I'm like, now he's singing with Greater Vision. He's like calling me like, man, I need an in or something like that. Now I'm like, well, man, you just didn't even wave at us on the way by. You just jumped into one of the big groups all of a sudden here, you know. Um, so anyway,
He actually joined Greater Vision like a month before I joined Mark. That's the funny thing, and I just was amazed because I knew he had a good voice and I heard him with Inspirations, but when he
he's
came
a
on in Greater
solid
Vision,
singer.
oh my gosh, he's an
Yeah,
incredible singer.
he is.
And he sang bass with Inspirations, but his baritone is just incredible. And,
So
he's been
yeah,
such an
but
asset to the
I realized then, like, I went and saw them when they were in Washington, Illinois, and I was on staff at a church, and Gerald was just like, I mean, you're right, he wasn't flashy, but as a piano player sitting over there watching him execute Goss's things and still put his own stuff in there tastefully, it was
yes.
great. So we only have a few minutes, so I really want you to speak to. I mean, there's going to be a lot of students watching this and people that want to play gospel piano. So I would love for
Yeah.
you to speak to them. Like, let's say you're a church pianist, you've not really explored the gospel style, but you're starting to like it and you're listening to it and stuff. Like, what would you recommend them to start learning, to start playing in that style? What would you do had you do it all over again? And me and you had both these people in our lives and these experiences, but if they don't have that, what would you push them? There's no right or wrong answer to start studying and doing right now to be a good accompanist
Yeah.
or a gospel player.
I recommend to people when they come up and they're whether they're 12 or whether they're 82, because I do have that range of a demographic of people that come up to me. That's not
Yeah.
just a number I've thrown out there, but there's people later in life too. They're like, hey, I've just now developed the love for the piano, and I really want to maybe jump into learning it. I tell people that it's like in life, you will become similar to what you were around.
That's right.
The people that you associate yourself with, you'll have the same likeness and thinking and the attributes and the way they carry themselves. And I believe that's true for musicians.
Yeah.
Whoever you study and whoever you listen to, your ear will naturally gravitate to that style. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to play just like me or somebody else, but I have learned that you can learn something from everybody if you just take the time to pay attention. And honestly, for me, that was a major part for me learning different musical styles because being raised in just country church convention style and then going into southern gospel, there was a bridge there that I had to realize that okay, this is done differently, and then understanding how that happened, and then getting exposed to secular music and gosh, I mean, the world of jazz is just still something that baffles my mind. But I honestly tell people, if you enjoy somebody in particular, get their music, buy their music, listen to their music, let it become a part of you because for you to be able to understand it, you got to listen to it. I tell people, people have asked me, are you going to do DVDs or anything? And I'm like, I'm not that type of person to put together just a DVD of me playing the piano. But you can learn some fingerings and stuff. But I'm like, study out why they play that particular chord progression. Listen to that hymn over and over and over again, and you're like, wow, that's way different than I play it on Sunday mornings. Because I'm trying to get people to not play the same introduction and over and over again. And I'm like, make it a good, tasteful intro. Play something different. Because I understand it's easy to get in that rut of playing the same thing over and over just so you can get to the next verse. And I think that's what sets people apart is when they take that time, they listen, and they're like, okay, so and so piano player had this approach. I'm going to try that. And the more and more you try different intros and outros, different ways that you can take your stylings to a different level, I think that increases you in your musical knowledge and also just the way that people uh, take your piano play. Because I've had people over the years, they say, you've really increased a bit in the way that you play, and honestly, that tells you that the church pays attention. Quality still matters in the church. So play Blessed Assurance like you normally do the first verse, but going into that second verse, change it up a little bit, do some different mods, or do something just to make it fresh, because I think church music needs that as we get into the next 10, 20, 30 years. We've got to keep those hymns alive, but we've also got to keep it fresh, to the listener's ear in a way that it's enjoyable. And I think that's going to be important as a church musician. Find somebody great, listen to their piano playing. A lot of us have just solo piano albums. Get those and listen to our approaches, and learn that way, because I think that also helps in your ear training as well, long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Influences for sure. Like I push so much chords and scales and this and that and how you can learn it. But if you haven't heard it before, you don't know what to do with all those, because that's the creativity part. And the
Exactly.
creativity is all these players that we were influenced by and say, oh, I recognize this pentatonic blues scale. That sounds like Ray Charles. Well, if
Yep.
you didn't know Ray Charles, and you wouldn't know, it would be nothing to you. So yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yes, sir.
So wonderful. Well, man,
Mhm.
we're gonna tie it up, but I appreciate you giving of your time so much. You definitely man, you've been with Mark how long?
6 years this month.
That
Yeah.
is a serious monumental thing. And
Yeah.
I love
9 years
that.
total gospel music. So.
That is awesome, man. So I mean that man, you started when you were I'm old, so I just realized yeah.
Hey, did you know when you were at the Dixie Echoes and you left that I sent in a resume to the Dixie Echoes?
No.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
No,
only like
no,
15,
I
but
didn't at all. They decided to save a check, I guess, when I left. They were like, enough of that. Enough of that. So anyway, well, man, we've got less than a minute. So we're gonna wrap it up. So I appreciate it so much, and maybe we'll get you on here to go over some of the stuff you play every night on another one
Yeah.
sometime. I know everybody love that.
Yeah, man. Hey, thank you for the opportunity. We love our church pianists and all our fans and supporters. Continue to support gospel music, support Ben and his instructional series, and hey, let's do it again, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Talk to you later. Thanks.
See ya.
All right, bye.